Hey friends, Kathryn here from Research Rockstar. Thanks for joining me today. Today I have a really important topic I'm looking forward to getting everybody's opinion on. So please add comments on this one because I think there's a little bit of controversy coming up. There was an article that came out in the February 2018 issue of Harvard Business Review, and it's really interesting to me. It's called "You Don't Have to Be a Data Scientist to Fill This Must-Have Analytics Role." Now, I'm a big fan of Harvard Business Review, and if you don't read it currently, they do offer it online, and you can get 3 articles a month for free. So I do recommend checking out Harvard Business Review. And this title certainly got my attention. Data scientists and analytics all in the same article title? Well, I'm hooked. So, what are they talking about? You don't have to be a data scientist to fill this important role? Tell me more. So, I read on. And it turns out that this has some interesting points of view that I think many of us who are in market research and insights as a profession will find quite compelling. According to McKinsey and their research and analysis, they say that there's an opportunity for as many as 4 million translators by 2026. Indeed, to quote the article, by 2026, the McKinsey Global Institute estimates the demand for translators in the United States alone may reach 2 to 4 million. Wow, that's quite a projection. So, millions of opportunities for professionals to be translators. Okay, so what are the job requirements? What are the skills that these translators need to have? So, they point to 3 key requirements. One is to help business leaders identify their business problems. One is to tap into their knowledge of AI and analytics to convey business goals to the data professionals. And the third is to ensure that the work produces insights that the business users can interpret and execute on. So, for those of you who are market research and insights professionals, some of those things kind of ring a bell, don't they? Helping business leaders identify business problems. That's something you already do. You do that very often, whether you work at a market research agency or you are in an internal corporate insights team. You work with clients, whether they're internal or external clients, right? You're working with people to identify what their business needs are. And we know that very often when people come to us with a business need, a project goal, they often do need a bit of a consultative approach. Very often people come to us with goals or objectives that are too broad for us to be able to design a approach, a methodology, and that will ultimately meet their needs. We all know that a bad objective, a weak, imprecise objective, is going to result in a project that's not that's not going to meet the client's needs with excellence. So we all know as experienced research and insights professionals that one of the most important components that determines the success of a project is whether or not we can work with that client to really fine tune their objective, their business needs, so that we understand exactly what information they need and how they're going to use it. So it's great that McKinsey has identified the importance of helping business leaders identify business problems to be able to be precise and document them. But I would say that I think this is something that market researchers already have a great deal of expertise in. So let's look at the second item. Tap into a knowledge of AI and analytics to convey business goals to data professionals. Now, again, I think this is something that we as research and insights professionals have a great deal of expertise on. However, there is one caveat. We have to be data agnostic. If we are going to help meet this demand for translators as research and insights professionals, we have to be data agnostic. We can't be people who only think about primary research in the form of surveys and focus groups and in-depth interviews and ethnographies. We have to embrace all sorts of data. And increasingly, we're doing that as a profession. But this speaks to the other side of the bias. So, on one hand, in market research and insights, we have to be careful not to be overly biased to conventional primary research methods. On the other hand, though, people who come from an analytics background, they also have to be careful not to be overly biased towards their data sources, right? So, we all get comfortable, different experts, you get comfortable with your data sources, your methodologies, and that becomes a source of bias. So, on one hand, the market researcher who is pursuing a translator role has to be sure that they're data agnostic and have awareness of when to bring in other data sources. But so too does an person coming from the analytics point of view, because there's sometimes some types of business needs and decisions that don't just need behavioral data that's collected from Google Analytics and retail purchase databases and customer analytics databases. They also sometimes need to collect data from other sources. So we have to be careful, because here they're saying that McKinsey's putting this huge emphasis on AI and analytics. I would say it's really about being data agnostic and being able to pull from the many, many different types of data sources that are available. I also object a little bit to this reference to AI. AI is not this big nebulous cloud of stuff that we reach to in order to get enlightenment. AI is something that's being incorporated into a lot of different platforms and methodologies. You don't use it as just AI. You're not going to go to the store and just get AI, right? You're going to go to the store and you're going to say, I'm going to use this software package that leverages AI. I'm going to use this reporting and analysis technique that and behind the scenes leverages AI and so forth. So I think that I get the hook that they want to be sort of a little bit, appealing to this interest in AI, but we have to remember AI alone doesn't really do anything, right? It powers other things. And so you don't have to be an AI PhD in order to leverage the power of AI. What you need to know what all of the different software products are and methodologies are that may behind the scenes be leveraging AI. So I just want to say, I appreciate what they're trying to accomplish here, but it's not just about AI and quote analytics. It's about knowing what all of your different options are. And finally, they point to that a successful translator has to be somebody who can whose work produces insights, right? They're going to have that opportunity to create insights that will actually help business users, because the insights will be data that they can interpret and understand and ultimately execute on. Again, I would say that people who are professionals in the research and insights field have a great deal of expertise with this. We know that when we are coming out with data, we can't do a data dump. We have to always go back to the stated objectives for the project and really make it clear for our clients, again, whether those are internal or external clients, to map, okay, this is the information that we have produced through this study. This is what we've learned. Now let's map that back to your objectives so that we can clearly see how this information is going to help you make those decisions or inform those strategies that we had identified at the planning phase for this project. And indeed, a lot of research and insights professionals these days find that the end of project process can actually be extremely collaborative these days, because the internal client or the external client will always have some important subject matter expertise. They have the greatest amount of experience in their vertical industry with their specific customer base. And so we do find these days that we have very often a collaborative end of project process so that we can work with those clients, leverage their subject matter expertise, use that in the interpretation, and really truly work as a team to produce the final results and the final guidance on how to apply those results. Indeed, what we often saw in the old days is that at the end of a project, we would deliver a report to a client, maybe do a 1 hour presentation, and that was pretty much it. But these days, that's changed. Very often, there are multiple meetings, there's iterations on a final deliverable. Sometimes that final presentation now is more of a workshop or a working meeting as opposed to just a one-way flow of information. So I really like what McKinsey is talking about here with the role of translators, but to me, it's not so much a translator as a data agnostic advisor. We have to make sure that that glue between the business's needs and the effective use of various methods and data sources to meet those needs is completely unbiased, not biased towards, quote, big data or, quote, small data, right? It has to be able to include a lot of things. And by the way, this idea of a translation kind of function or a data agnostic function, we're already seeing that reflected in job titles and job postings that are relevant to those of us in market research and insights. In fact, last week in a conversation that we produced last week, I shared a couple of these job titles as evidence that there is increasing integration, that there are an increasing number of job opportunities for people who have both the traditional market research expertise as well as awareness and knowledge of using other types of data sources. So for example, Johnson & Johnson had a job posting recently for a integrated analytics and market research expert. And when you read the job description, it's clear that they're looking for somebody who has what we would all consider traditional market research areas of expertise, but also knows when to bring in other data sources. So a single job combining that integrated approach to both using conventional market research methods as well as what we might consider these days analytics or marketing science methods. Total Wine, they're currently seeking a VP of Consumer Insights and Analytics. Again, very much an integrated data agnostic role. They're looking for somebody who can lead customer focused and marketing data mining techniques to drive predictive analytics, ongoing reporting, segmentation strategies, and so on. So clearly, again, we're seeing jobs already that integrate both traditional research and new data sources. I think that what McKinsey is talking about as a translator is really important, and I think that these job titles reflect that this is already happening, that there are job functions that are reflecting that businesses want to undo the silos. So if there's a silo that's a market research silo or a consumer insights silo or a shopper insights silo or a category insights silo and other silos for customer analytics, e-commerce analytics, web analytics, the idea is to bring these things together. And by the way, we did talk a little bit about this in last week's conversation as well, and how this is actually being reflected in new organizational structures. So I do recommend you check out last week's conversation to learn about what's going on with how many companies are actually changing their organizational structure to reduce the amount of silos between all of these different data functions. Again, because the organization needs to be able to equally tap all of the different areas of data expertise as needed. But this can be a change for those of us in market research and insights because being data agnostic means that we have to be aware of and familiar with a lot of different types of data sources and methodologies. So let me ask you a question. This is a good question to kind of do a little bit of a self-test for yourself to see if you're ready to be a translator or a data agnostic advisor. Let's imagine you're working with a client and you're working on a project where your goal has been to prioritize among 10 possible product features in a new virtual reality headset. All right, maybe you're now on the insights team for a virtual reality headset company, and there's a lot of debate about which of these possible 10 features really need to be in that product. What data sources or methods would you recommend? Now take a minute and think about this. You want to prioritize among possible product features for a new virtual reality headset. What sources or methods would you recommend? If the only thing that comes to mind are surveys and focus groups and in-depth interviews, you've got a challenge. Then in that case, what I would say is you need to spend some time reading up on other types of data sources and methodologies, because this is absolutely a project that could be met through a combination of data sources, not just using one. For example, if this is a company that has multiple models of virtual reality headsets already that have some of these features, let's look at sales data, right? Let's mine the data we already have to see if we can see which of these features have actually been associated with lower or higher sales. So there can definitely be some data mining here. How about looking at our web data? You know, what are people searching for? Are people searching for some of these features more than others? So this is a case where we could use a combination of existing data, maybe even social media listening, as well as perhaps some self-reported data as well. The truth is that data is very messy these days. There are a lot of different data options available to business decision makers. If you want to be the data agnostic advisor, if you want to be the McKinsey type translator, you need to be familiar with both primary and secondary data. You need to be comfortable about when to recommend leveraging either small data or big data. You need to be comfortable with both quantitative and qualitative data. You need to be comfortable with the fact that there's both structured data and unstructured data. You need to be comfortable with customer data, e-commerce data, web analytics data, maybe even financial data. And it's important also to know about other ways of talking about data. Data is very messy these days. There's a lot of ways to talk about categories of data and data methodologies. So when a client comes to you, if you're going to be that data agnostic advisor, you don't need to be able to do all of these things hands on, but you need to recognize when they're the appropriate choice so that you can bring in a cross functional team of experts who can execute the actual work. The bottom line is if you're a market research and insights professional, you need to make sure that if you're interested in a career path that is going to give you, well, frankly, opportunity for advancement in a world that's increasingly not siloed, and if you believe the McKinsey prediction that there's going to be this huge opportunity for translators, you need to be able to ask yourself honestly, can I tell when it's appropriate to use self-reported data to measure customer attitudes and behaviors? And do I know when it's best to use other data sources? Again, if you're over-relying on self-reported data, it's going to be hard to put yourself out there as a credible translator or a credible data agnostic advisor. Do check out the article on Harvard Business Review. And by the way, check out the many comments. I commented on the article. I know some other researchers have already commented on the article. You should comment on the article. So do check it out. And if you feel so moved, do comment on the article. And for those of you who are interested in market research and insight skills, I just want to point out that we have another great class coming up in March on Introduction to Factor and Cluster Analysis. This is with our amazing Stephen Stroll. Stephen is one of our instructors, incredibly bright guy, very strong statistics, analytics person, PhD. And in this course, it's really a course for the project manager who needs to know when to recommend using factor and cluster analysis and how to sort of manage projects that include it. That is, what do you need to know if you're planning on using factor and cluster analysis? What sort of expectations do you need to set with clients? What the implications are for questionnaire design? And it also includes the output. So we have actual samples of output of factor and cluster analysis in this class. Again, you may very well be working with a data analyst who's going to produce the factor and cluster analysis, but even as a project manager or somebody who's going to be writing a research report or presenting these results, we want you to be really confident that you know when to use these techniques and a little bit about their relative pros and cons. If you have any questions, please do contact me or leave comments here. If you did like this video, please do like it and subscribe to it. Those of you who are listening on iTunes, same thing. If you like this, please do like and subscribe. Thanks.